Hello friends, welcome back once again to our online educational video. In today's video, we are going to discuss only and only about carbonic anhydrase inhibitors. From last some lectures, we are discussing about antihypertensive and diuretics. In the very last video, we got introduced to the diuretics, its mechanism of actions and its classification. We also got introduced in detail about the loop diuretics, also known as high serine diuretics, and benzothiazines, which are also known as the thiazide diuretics. If you want to see that video, you can just click over the link which is shown at the upper side of this video. So as I said that in this video we are going to discuss about the carbonic anhydrase inhibitors. Let us get introduced to the various examples of carbonic anhydrase inhibitors. It includes the acetazolamide, dorzolamide, ethoxyzolamide, methazolamide and dichlorphenamide. Among these, acetazolamide is considered as the prototype drug in carbonic anhydrase inhibitors. All these carbonic anhydrase inhibitors are known as sulfonamides but having a limited use as a diuretics. Though they belong to the category sulfonamide, they lack antibacterial activity. Before studying in detail about the carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, we should know or we should get introduced to the carbonic anhydrase. So the name itself indicates carbonic anhydrase is an enzyme, and this enzyme is generally present in renal tubular cells, gastric mucosa, exocrine pancreas, ciliary body of eye, brain and RBCs. Now the question is what is the exact function of carbonic anhydrase in all these tissues or organs? So as far as all these tissues and organs are considered, these tissues or the cells belonging to these organs are involved in the secretion or formation of certain fluid. For example, gastric mucosa is engaged for the formation of gastric juice, exocrinal pancreas secretes pancreatic juice, ciliary body of eyes secrete aqueous humor, brain forms cerebrospinal fluid and RBCs forms carbonic acid. So upon the activation of carbonic anhydrase, all these secretions towards the gastric mucosa, exocrine pancreas, ciliary body, brain and RBCs get increased. So carbonic anhydrase enzyme causes increase in gastric secretions, increase in pancreatic juice, increase in the formation of aqueous humor that may further lead to the development of glaucoma, increased cerebrospinal fluid and increased carbonic acid. But when we specifically say about renal tubular cell, it is being responsible for decrease in urine formation. But we can say that it increases the blood volume. So blood volume is going to be increased while the urine formation is going to be decreased upon the activation of carbonic anhydrase. So now as far as their diuretics function is considered, the carbonic anhydrase causes the reabsorption of sodium at two sites. The very first site is a PCT, that is proximal convoluted tubule, where the absorption of bicarbonate takes place. Means what? It is a site where the bicarbonate absorption takes place along with sodium. And the second one, it is DCT, that is distal convoluted tubules, where sodium is exchanged for potassium or hydrogen. And this exchange is under the influence of activation of either sodium potassium pump or sodium hydrogen pump. So upon the activation of this pump, the 3 sodium ions get exchanged with the 2 potassium ions. So 3 sodium ions moves from tubular fluid into the blood in exchange of either two molecules of potassium or hydrogen from blood into the renal tubules. So now we got where exactly this carbonic anhydrase inhibitors or where exactly this carbonic anhydrase enzyme is going to act. Now specifically we are speaking about the carbonic anhydrase, we are not speaking about the carbonic anhydrase inhibitors. Very soon we will be there in the next part of this video discuss about the carbonic anhydrase. But first of all we should get introduced to the various functions and the site where the carbonic anhydrase acts. So in our body we said that the RBCs are involved in the transport of gases such as oxygen and carbon dioxide. So RBCs are involved in the transport of oxygen from lungs to the various tissues by forming a complex of oxygen and hemoglobin known as oxyhemoglobin. So with the help of a complex oxyhemoglobin, oxygen gets transported from lungs to the various tissue. Once this oxyhemoglobin complex reaches to the tissue, it is released or the complex is broken to provide the oxygen, and this oxygen further gets converted into the carbon dioxide after the many metabolic reactions. And once this carbon dioxide is produced by the cell, it is required to be excreted. So whatever the carbon dioxide is formed, 15% of the carbon dioxide forms a complex with RBCs, specifically with hemoglobin. That complex is known as a carbaminohemoglobin, and this complex is then brought from tissues towards the lungs. And as soon as it reaches to the lungs, the complex is broken down into carbon dioxide, and from where the carbon dioxide can be exhaled out through the lungs. But the remaining 85% of carbon dioxide get metabolized, get excreted by using the another pathway, and it is nothing but what? Carbonic anhydrase pathway, where the hydration of carbon dioxide takes place in presence of an enzyme known as carbonic anhydrase. So the hydration of carbon dioxide results into formation of carbonic acid, which spontaneously gets ionized into the H plus ions and bicarbonate ions. And remember, this reaction is reversible in nature. So now what we said, upon the hydration of carbon dioxide, H plus ions are going to be formed. So these H plus ions are generally present within our body. So I must say these are generally present within our blood system, and this blood system is indicated with the help of red cylinder as shown in the figure. And now we should assume that these H plus ions are indicated with the blue circles, and these H plus ions are now present within the blood. So more and more activity of carbonic anhydrase is involved, the more and more H plus ions will be formed. As a result of that, it may result into decrease in the pH of blood, so called metabolic acidosis. But in our body, as soon as the excess of H plus ions are formed, they get excreted through the kidney. So how does they get excreted through the kidney? Let us discuss about that. So the H plus ions, excess of H plus ion, let us consider, are present within the blood system, while the sodium and water is present within the renal tubules. This time I have shown the renal tubules with the help of yellow cylinder. Now the exchange of H plus ion takes place with the help of a pump, and that pump should be a sodium hydrogen pump. And if these blue circles are the K plus ion, then the pump involved should be sodium potassium pump. So upon the activation of these sodium hydrogen pump, the two molecules of hydrogen moves from blood into the renal tubules upon the exchange with the three molecules of sodium. And remember, all these changes takes place under the influence of sodium hydrogen pump. and this pump is energy dependent. So energy is required for the function of this pump. So one molecule of ATP is utilized in exchange of 3 molecules of sodium and 2 molecules of potassium. And if this exchange involves the K plus, then this pump should be the sodium potassium pump that will exchange 2 molecules of potassium with the 3 molecules of sodium. So what will happen whenever there is a excess of H plus ions are produced in our body? It results into absorption of more and more sodium and water within the blood system. So as a result, due to the activation of carbonic anhydrase, it results into accumulation of sodium and water in our body. So what is this? It is just opposite to the mechanism of action of diuretics, where we said that the diuretics inhibit the reabsorption of sodium and water. So we must use here the carbonic anhydrase inhibitor so that it can block the reabsorption of sodium and water into the blood. So when we are using the carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, it results into the less and less formation of H plus ion, so that the less H plus ions are available for exchange with the sodium and water molecules, and thereby it results into excretion of sodium and water molecules rather than its reabsorption, and this is the mechanism of action for the carbonic anhydrase inhibitors as a diuretics. So let us recall what changes exactly takes place when the carbonic anhydrase inhibitors are given. So the very first one, it slows down the hydration of carbon dioxide so that the less amount of H plus ions are made available for exchange with the sodium ions, and as a result it results into the increase in the formation of urine. And now as the carbonic anhydrase inhibitors are given, it may result into the deficiency of H plus ion so that more and more K plus ion will be exchanged along with the sodium ions, which may further lead to the hypokalemia. As the acetazolamide is responsible for the excretion of more and more bicarbonates, it results into formation of alkaline urine. So alkalinization of urine can also take place with the help of carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, that is acetazolamide. And a continuous excretion of these bicarbonates from the body, it also results into the metabolic acidosis. Metabolic acidosis, where the H plus ions will again start to regain its quantity, and as the enough number of H plus ions are made available for exchange, the diuretic effect of acetazolamide will get end. So this action of the acetazolamide or the carbonic anhydrase inhibitors are considered as self-limiting, and is the reason for what the carbonic anhydrase inhibitors are having a limited use as a diuretics. And another reason for its limited use is that it also produces metabolic acidosis as well as hypokalemia. So from the beginning we are saying that the carbonic anhydrase inhibitors are rarely used as a diuretics. So rather than the diuretics, carbonic anhydrase inhibitors are having non-diuretic use, such as it is used in the treatment of acute open angle glaucoma. The glaucoma is a disorder due to the increase in the intraocular pressure, and this intraocular pressure in case of the acute open angle glaucoma is due to excessive formation of aqueous humor. And as we discussed earlier, the carbonic anhydrase inhibitors may inhibit the formation of aqueous humor, and it is the reason for what it lowers the intraocular tension and can be used in the treatment of acute open angle glaucoma. As it results into the alkalinization of urine, these carbonic anhydrase inhibitors can be used in the acidic drug poisoning, for example salicylate poisoning and barbiturate poisoning. Acidic drug poisoning can be treated by the alkalinization of urine so that it may enhance the excretion of acidic drug rather than its reabsorption. As the carbonic anhydrase inhibitors causes the alkalinization of urine, these are also useful in the treatment of urinary tract infection. The next one, it is used in the treatment of epilepsy, and it is just because of what the raised level of CO2 in brain and pH lowering effect of carbonic anhydrase inhibited as they produces metabolic acidosis. It results into the elevation of seizure threshold, and it is reason for what it is used in the treatment of epilepsy. As we discussed earlier that one of the side effects of carbonic anhydrase inhibitors is that they produces metabolic acidosis, so they can be the useful drug for the treatment of metabolic alkalosis. Carbonic anhydrase inhibitors are also used in the treatment of acute mountain sickness. This acute mountain sickness is generally identified by physical distress and difficulty for adjusting for someone to the lower oxygen pressure that is being found to be present at high altitude. Means when a person reaches to the height of about 8,000 to 10,000 feet, due to decrease in the oxygen pressure, he gets suffer from the certain physical distress. These persons are scary about going at a particular height, and this acute mountain sickness can be treated with the help of carbonic anhydrase inhibitors. Generally, these carbonic anhydrase inhibitors are given to an individual who are going to climb the mountain. These carbonic anhydrase inhibitors are given to an individual just 5 days before of mountain climbing. And it has been found that this acute mountain sickness is due to increase in the intracranial pressure. This increase in the intracranial pressure can be decreased with the help of carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, where they may inhibit the formation of cerebrospinal fluid. So as we discussed earlier, these carbonic anhydrase inhibitors are responsible for acidosis. The mechanism for that one has been discussed: hypokalemia, drowsiness, paresthesias, fatigue and abdominal discomfort. The reason for the abdominal discomfort is very simple, that we said that the carbonic anhydrase, it is an enzyme which is also present towards the gastric mucosa, and the second one towards the exocranial pancreas. And when these carbonic anhydrase inhibitors are given, it results into decreased gastric HCl and decreased pancreatic secretions. And these both gastric juice and pancreatic secretions are essential in the process of digestion. We know very well. It also results into calculus formation or the ureteric colic due to the alkalizing effect of carbonic anhydrase inhibitors. It has been also found that these carbonic anhydrase inhibitors are responsible for the depression of uptake of iodide, which may itself it is the iatrogenic effect, and certain hypersensitivity reaction that may also result into agranulocytosis or other blood dyscrasias. So friends, thank you very much. As we said that in our today's video, we are going to discuss about the carbonic anhydrase inhibitors. So our discussion related to the carbonic anhydrase inhibitors is over, and very soon we will be there to make the next videos based upon the potassium sparing diuretics. Thank you very much and have a nice day.